right, so we're at Mahannah WMA, just a few miles north of Vicksburg. Going to do a little teal hunt this morning. This is open public land. We're going to get in on one of these impoundments and see what we can do on those teal birds. So we were talking on the way down here. This is now a tradition for us. So we've been doing this, what?
3 years running.
3 years running. We're going to run a blue dog, blue heeler.
Yeah.
It's a little out of the norm for retrieving, but
see if all of our stuff still works from last year.
Yeah.
Including the dog.
Yeah, dust off the old shoulder and see what we can do.
That's right. And the patch he was talking about is out in front of us, and the one I was talking about is back here behind us.
Houston said 20, 21, or 22.
Okay.
So let's go to 22.
Let's do it.
Big group behind us, up high. Right there.
Got him. All right, Ben. Get one in front of them old decoys next time. Little mixed bag.
Get it, buddy. Good boy. Good boy, buddy. He didn't hesitate at all. He was waiting on the word. Boom, went right out there like he knew what he was doing and picked it up.
Didn't we say at the beginning we were going to dust off the old shoulder, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
It has been dusted. We're here on Mahannah Wildlife Management Area in the South Delta today, taking a look at some late summer wetland habitat. When we think about wetland habitat in Mississippi, a lot of times we're talking about areas that are not holding water during the summertime, places like either planted crops or moist soil habitat. But today we're taking a look at some semi-permanent habitat, areas where we've held water through most of the growing season. It's producing some really good aquatic vegetation that different species of birds will be using through the late summer and then on into the early fall. Taking a look at some of the teal that are starting to show up already, as well as wading birds and shorebirds. Numbers are pretty good so far for this time of year. We're hearing from public lands and private lands that have water that are starting to see good numbers of blue-winged teal showing up. And this habitat also just produces really good, valuable habitat during the summertime, where a lot of places are typically dry, but these areas are flooded and providing really good habitat for a wide variety of species. Today we're just getting an overall look at what the area looks like, getting an idea of numbers of both ducks and other species, non-game birds that are using the area, trying to get an idea of the different diverse species that are using the area, just to show the importance of having some water during the late summer period. So this is kind of a new situation that we have here on Mahannah. We have some late summer water, so we're just trying to get an idea of the number of birds that are using it this time of year. Here we're just showing just some examples of the kind of beneficial wetland plants that are produced in a semi-permanent wetland system. Some Sprangletop, which is a really good grass, has a large seed head, a lot of seed production. And then an example of a sedge here on the end. These are really good, beneficial, kind of what we would call moist soil plants. When we're holding water throughout the growing season, like we're doing on some of our management areas, we are also looking for some beneficial broadleaf plants, and we have some examples of those here. This is what we call duck salad. It's an aquatic plant that the ducks will eat the vegetation of. Not all species are going to favor this plant, but species like teal, gabwall, and widgeon are going to just basically eat the vegetation that are produced. The two better species that we have here are two different types of duck potato. We've got Delta duck potato, or arrow leaf. You can see here it gets its name from the shape of the leaf. And then we have lance leaf duck potato, which is very similar growth form, but just a different shape of the leaf here. Basically, these plants are in the entire part of the plant is consumed by waterfowl. So ducks are coming through, they're going to be eating some of the leafy vegetation off this plant. This plant is starting to flower, and it'll eventually start to produce seeds where it's flowering here. Those are also going to be consumed later on in the year, in the fall. And then we got an example here that's starting to run off of this plant of a stolon that's basically part of the root system. Later on in the fall, as these plants start to send nutrients down into the root system, they'll produce these runners that are really nutritious. And also, where the plants get their name, they actually produce tubers that are called duck potatoes in these root systems. So as birds are starting to get here later in the fall, they'll be pulling up these plants, eating the above ground portions, and then they'll also be exposing the below ground portions from these root systems. It just produces an overall really large quantity of duck food in a system like this. Another thing about these plants is they're producing a lot of above the ground biomass that's eventually, when we start to get colder weather, start to frost, these are going to start to die back. And all of this vegetation that we see across the surface of the water is going to start to break down. The water's going to start to open up and show more showy water across these impoundments. What all this starts to become is basically vegetation that's going to be broken down in the water. And as that starts to break down in the water, invertebrates are going to start to feed on the portions of these plants that are leafy and dying back. As they get further into the wintertime, they'll be feeding on the invertebrates that are eating the dying plants.